A year ago, the film community was treated to a brand new colour film stock that had never existed before. The manufacturer had never made their own colour film, and within 1 year, we were introduced to Harman Phoenix. A month after the announcement, I got myself 2 roles in Australia, for which I took one to Japan and the other to China. Like many of you, I was looking forward to shooting this film. I had many high hopes and aspirations, but as I was travelling, I didn't get to look at others' work on this film to educate myself on how to shoot it. As I often say on this channel, unfortunately for me, this camera suffered from a light leak failure and ruined my first role. It was such a shame, as I was really looking forward to these photos from Tokyo and to capture them on a new colour emulsion. I made sure this was not the case with my second role, which I shot in Shanghai. As many have said, this is a very contrasty film, with not a huge amount of latitude. The shadows often are crushed and the highlights often blown out. For 200 ISO, it has noticeable grain as well. For some, grain is good, and for others, the grain is too much. This is also the only non-cinema colour film to not have an anti-halation layer, which can be used to great effect. Yes, the reds are punchy, but the film community says that about a lot of films. But it's kinda true about this film. It does seem to have more sensitive red dyes in this emulsion. And yes, the film has vintage tones, and that is wonderful in some ways. As I was travelling, I didn't really get a chance to shoot this film with any kind of real experimentation. I shot it at box speed. But these photos laid out the foundation on what I was expecting and what I wanted to improve upon. Whilst not blown away with this new colour film stock, I wanted to give this film stock another go. Most film stocks have more than one way to shoot them, and I had researched other methods for bringing the most out of Harman Phoenix. I'd always planned to record this video around spring. It just so happened to be that Harman had brought out the film in 120 around the same time. So, I decided to continue my plan but also expand upon it by including some shots in medium format. For my first set of rolls, I had decided to pull the film to reduce the contrast. I shot this film at 100 ISO and then had the lab pull the film one stop in development. From the outset of getting my negatives and scanning them, I can say this is for sure the way to shoot this film, while still containing a decent amount of contrast that has improved by shooting it with this method. It does give it a lot more dynamic range for this film stock, making it a lot more usable. I would highly recommend this method for getting the most out of Harman Phoenix. It does come with the downside of extra cost, as most labs will charge for pulling film. If you like this film's unique look, but wanted to get more balanced images, this is the method I would recommend. This method also reduces the grain quite noticeably compared to shooting it at 200 and developing normally. As for the difference between medium format and 35mm, again, there is a stark difference in noticeable graininess, with the medium format photos being far more usable if you're wanting to print, or not having grain being a distraction in your image.
Do you mind if I just capture you?
For those that have watched my videos before, you'll know that Redscale photography is probably my favourite way to shoot colour film. Akin to black and white and being monotone, the hellish vibes blend the worlds of monotone and colour, giving stunning landscapes a sense of being peaked with energy. I had seen some Redscale shots of Harman Phoenix thanks to the YouTuber Shaka, whose series on mastering Harman Phoenix has directly inspired these attempts of me mastering and learning Harman Phoenix's strengths and weaknesses, giving a full understanding of its capabilities. From my own artistic standpoint, Harman Phoenix is the best ever Redscaled film I've ever shot. It radiates like no other. Once back in Raleigh, I decided to go back to my favourite spot, the Botanic Gardens. Whilst I'd missed out on most of spring due to an emergency trip, I knew there would still be some flowers left, but I didn't shoot the flowers because I got distracted with this beehive instead that I found. I like how it was being illuminated by the sun, and it was a good test for my experiment. Originally, I was going to do Harman Phoenix as ECN or slide film, but that really wouldn't give the best results. Instead, I chose to take pulling one step further, this time shooting the film at 50 ISO. The reason for a two-step pull is to reduce the contrast even more so, just to give this film better dynamic range. This was also a test for my new lens, for my Mamiya C220. As you can see, I kept on being able to shoot closer and closer and closer. Now, why did I choose this subject matter? Well, one, I don't normally see a beehive around, other than where the politicians are at. But two, it was well lit up, but the area behind the beehive was not. The biggest complaint about Phoenix is that the contrast is incredibly strong. Too strong for very uneven scenes, where you are going to lose detail in the shadows or the highlights. Shooting at 50 ISO and pulling the film this much should reduce the contrast heavily. A week later, I was back again at the Botans. I wanted to see if I could pull images not just on medium format, but also on 35mm. .120 overall as a format has a better image quality, so 35mm is a harsher test to see if the film stock can handle being pushed to its limits. I did find that even on this bright sunny day, that due to the low ISO, that I was pushing this film to its limit by shooting the film like this. For what I wanted to shoot, and with this lens where a higher f-stop was needed, I found myself struggling to get a high enough shutter speed without sacrificing my depth of focus. This was especially difficult when these native tuis appeared. But overall, when you get the exposure right, the film looks way better at 50 ISO with nice detail in the shadows, even more so than shooting at 100. So my final thoughts. Harman Phoenix rocks as a cool, unique film stock. If I could recommend a way to shoot it at 100 ISO and develop it at 100. You could try 50, but you have to be comfortable at shooting at such lower shutter speeds. Just be aware of the trade-offs that come with a less sensitive film. When you shoot at 50, it's just a lot less versatile than shooting it at 100, and you can't as easily apply rules like Sunny 16. I would not shoot this film at 200 ISO. If you don't know if the lab can develop it at 100, still shoot it at 100 ISO. My final feedback for Harmen would be, please keep this film stock. Its uniqueness is needed. Sure, it can be a little grainy, but for those that are after a very nostalgic look in this modern age, this is the film stock that can achieve that feeling. It's different. To make and manufacture this film from existing ingredients is one hell of an accomplishment. Also, bring it out in 4x5.